benefit of some comparative information and experience, but also being fairly granular about the manifestations of the problem and how we can begin to make some inroads into trying to address it. But for me, at this particular time, the biggest single issue is redefining judicial independence and the values of judicial ethics. We made a mistake. We took a wrong detour at independence in accepting the suggestion that colonial rule endowed us with a legacy of judicial independence. That was the fundamental mistake because of two things. Number one, colonial rule as a fact was incapable of endowing us with an independent judiciary because colonial rule was founded on the opposite of judicial independence.
Yeah.
Every institution was malleable,
meant to,
was subservient to the colonial will.
Right.
So you could not have an independent judiciary. The habits did not exist either, nor did the skills, nor indeed did the institutional neural wirings. So by the time...
And there were no such visions when, you
absolutely
know...
not.
Yeah.
By the time we became independent, there were no independent institutions anywhere. That meant, secondly, therefore, that we should have articulated a political philosophy to underpin, an institutional philosophy to underpin the building of independent institutions. We failed to do that. And I'm not saying this is not anything new. If you look at, say, Tanzania, Julius Nyerere in Tanganyika actually articulated a coherent philosophy of building post-colonial institutions that were independent and had affinity with the people. In South Africa, post-liberation, you had a coherent philosophy built by civil society and the ANC and the negotiating partners in the CODESA and then in Kempton Park. We had nothing of the sort. And as a matter of fact, as we began post-colony, you could see that with Awolowo's, with J.S. Tucker's treason trial, and then Awolowo's treasonable felony trial, and then Adegbenro and Akintola in 1963. That's 61, 62, 63. The unraveling of the whole institutional architecture.
And then 66, we got into the military.
Into the military rule. Okay? So it never happened. We never built those institutions, nor did we create the political consciousness to build those institutions. And so individuals then became potentates and principalities.
Yeah.
Okay? This is the underlying pathology we've got to address.
I agree, Chidi.
Now, addressing it will take time, and sometimes it may even take victims, okay, and sacrifices. Now, that means that we are now at the place. You know, when you talk about judicial independence, the first thing is, oh, Nigerian Bar Association should do this, NJC should do that, Chief Justice should do that. No. Judicial independence is so important that it cannot be abandoned to judges and lawyers and their incest and politicians. Absolutely not. It is so political. Citizens must take ownership of it. That is why I've stayed on the subject matter. That we've got to politicize judicial independence and independent institutions in order to, we've got first to politicize the subject matter in order to depoliticize it.
And what you mean by that is that the conversation must go outside of the boundaries of the legal profession.
Absolutely. Because if you don't do that, you will never fix that problem.
But what about what you said about the generational change, even within the profession itself?
Yes.
You know, I think there's also a generational imperative, you know, because the ways that these things have been done up until now has shown, like you said earlier, that even the protagonist of the system itself can't even get justice.
And this is why I therefore levy a huge weight of responsibility and expectation, not on that generation, but on my own generation. Because we are a bridging generation. We are the last